Hello and happy Monday. Hard to believe we have only 2 weeks left of regular class and then final exams. So today we're going to get started with a little bit of comp in the news and some more of what's been going on with COVID-19 and compensation. So the first thing is that those small business loans for the Paycheck Protection Program have been completely depleted so far. And it was also interesting, I just saw today that the Shake Shack, which is a restaurant for those of you who don't have those, is actually going to be returning $10 million of their COVID Paycheck Protection Program loan. They were able to get funding in another way. An equity source was able to help them with that, so they're giving that money back. And I also saw that the White House and Congress are close to an agreement for another $450 billion relief package. And I think $300 billion of that will go to these small business loans, and another $50 billion will go to the Small Business Association. Next up, some workers' compensation has been expanded. So if you guys remember, workers' comp is whenever you get injured at work, then you are able to claim this. So a couple of states, Kentucky and Illinois, have gone ahead and said that there is an emergency underway, and so these public-facing essential workers such as grocery, pharmacy, postal service, daycare workers are able to claim workers' compensation. And it looks like some lawmakers in Louisiana and New Jersey are also trying to propose this. So this is something that has never been done before because communicable diseases have just never been covered under any kind of workers' compensation. It's really difficult to prove where you got it. So if you got the flu and it caused pneumonia and other things, you're not able to claim workers' compensation. So this is just something that is really difficult to understand what the potential ramifications are going to be. Certainly the insurance companies are not very excited about this, and it could really end up also costing those employers who have to pay into that workers' compensation. Work share programs grow in demand. So Texas, Oregon, Colorado, Wisconsin, and Arkansas, as well as some other states, are doing a lot more in this work share program. So these are state run. So again, unemployment insurance is state run. So this is a program where if you can work just a few hours or some hours, then your unemployment unemployment benefit is prorated based on the number of hours that you worked versus the number of hours that you need to be paid with this unemployment benefits. So this is just another way that different states are working with these employers to try and make sure that we can take care of employees in the best possible way. Next up, what we just learned about on our last chapter with the Affordable Care Act. So layoffs without termination and furloughs, which actually keeps these people, that says they're still your employee. So that can actually trigger those employer mandate penalties under the Affordable Care Act. So in order to avoid that, these employers, you're really going to need to verify that all of your full-time employees, as defined by the ACA, which is that 30 hours, are continually offered healthcare coverage. And so this might mean that the employer is going to have to bear 100% of the cost while that furlough period is taking place. And again, if employers fail to offer minimum essential coverage and an employee goes out onto the exchange, purchases tax subsidized health insurance on that ACA exchange, then that penalty is going to kick in. So another question that a lot of employers are asking is, can we reduce exempt employee pay even if we're not going to reduce their hours? And it turns out, yes, you can. Okay, and again, it will probably be temporary, but employers are permitted to make a reduction in exempt employees' salary as long as it's prospective, without discrimination, and that minimum salary requirement is still met. So they still have to meet that minimum threshold, but if they do, then that salary can be reduced. All right, so speaking of reducing salary, or maybe not, let's talk about compensating executives. All right, so first up, we're going to talk about what is a key employee. So the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, has a very specific definition of what a key employee is. And the reason that they need to define that is because they want to make sure that if the retirement plans are top heavy, that your executives are getting, these key employees are getting more than 60% of the total value of the plan assets, then certain provisions will kick in. So what is a key employee? Well, in 2020, which is different from what's in the book, but in 2020, it is an officer having annual pay of more than $185,000, okay? Or an individual who was either a 5% owner of the company and a 1% or a 1% owner whose annual pay is more than $150,000, and that hasn't changed from what's in the book, okay? Now, does annual base pay account for a large or small portion of executives' pay? It's actually very small. If you, depending on the executive, obviously, but if you're looking at, Fortune 100 type companies, so it's usually right around $1 million. And why? It's because the tax benefits to the organization, okay? So the IRS limits the amount of salary that a company can pay that they can exclude as a business expense. Also, if you think about it, annual base pay is small because we are putting more money into these incentives that we're going to talk about in a minute. Because as a CEO or as a senior executive within an organization, it really is going to take a long time to see the strategic benefits of that particular individual. Okay, so why are bonuses given to executives? Well, kind of like what I was just talking about. Bonuses are used to provide incentive for these employees to provide excellent service, right? Huge, specific, exceptional goals, that they're achieving these things. And what do bonuses look like? They're usually short term, right? And they're going to be based on things like revenue or market share, because again, these people are responsible for the entire organization. So profit, how much, are we increasing our profit margin or our profit overall? Have they implemented some kind of a new strategy that they can put forth? Developing new products, expanding into new markets. So these are big things that your board of directors is going to want to see and reward, okay? So again, usually you're going to have like a target level, and then you're going to have a stretch level. So if you've achieved some extraordinary goal, you're going to get a really nice bonus. So what are discretionary bonuses? Well, they're just that. They're discretionary, at the discretion of the board of directors. And again, it's to, that somebody, this key executive has achieved some large goal. So let's look again at company profits, the financial condition of the company, business conditions, future prospects. If that board of directors believes that this individual or these individuals have really taken the organization in the right direction and that things are looking really good, then they want to award a bonus to that particular person. Performance contingent bonuses are ahead of time. Let's look at this ahead of time. We're going to set the goal and have you attained this very specific goal. All right. So let's look a little comp in the news here. Goldman Sachs CEO this year got a 20% raise to $27.5 million for his work. And his pay package includes $2 million annual salary, so they're willing to spend a little extra on the taxes there. His pay package includes a $2 million annual salary, $7.65 million in cash bonus. Okay, so he got a cash bonus. And then he got a $17.85 million in performance-linked stock units. All right, so they've been really pleased with his performance. They've been looking at his 3-year business plan. Great long-term strategy, really has leveraged the foundational advantages, enhances the firm's long-term mindset. So they are really, really pleased with how he's been doing. And so they awarded him A, the cash bonus, which is, I'm going to say, was discretionary. And then B is the performance contingent. So we're going to talk more about stock options and how those work, but you can see that if the organization does well, if Goldman Sachs continues to do well and those stocks are going to go up, then the $17.85 million is going to be even worth more in the future. All right, so what is deferred compensation? So deferred to the future. So it is based more on the long-term strategy, and you want that because you want that executive to take ownership. All right, you want them. You need to clearly align the organization's goals with the compensation of this executive. So when the organization does well, the executive does well. So it's really creating that true sense of ownership over the long term. And why is this so great for the executive? So again, if it's long term, and especially if it's stock, let's say, or some type of retirement, then that executive isn't going to be taxed until they cash out on that stock or until they get retirement, which is when they are retired, and their tax base is probably lower. So right now, when he's making $27 million, probably have a really high tax rate, but maybe when he retires, that tax rate is going to be less. Okay, so it's a good way to do it there. Now let's just look at how many companies, or the companies by size, and how many of them have some form of formal incentive plan. And you'll see a lot do, right? So the smaller ones are less likely to have a formal annual incentive plan. But once you get up to, it looks like the 100 million to 500 million, you've got 84%. Then you've got the 500 million to 1 billion, 94% of the companies have some form of incentive plan for their executives. All right, so you can see that this is a very common plan. This is something that executives are going to expect. It seems to be something that these boards of directors and the compensation committees really believe works. All right, so I'm going to end it here, and we are going to move on into more of those stock